pros be making YouTube videos, streaming on Twitch or MLG, whatever it may be? Should they be putting out content for our viewers or for other pros to potentially see? And there are two sides of the coin. Personally, in my opinion, they shouldn't be making at least certain types of videos. Obviously, you've got the exceptions in the vlogs and the other games such as like CSGO, where it's not really, it doesn't pertain to what they're playing in their esport. They're not giving away strategy. There's so many things that are intangible, but I think do have a huge impact in the way people view Call of Duty and also the way things, happen. So, for instance, you look at games like League of Legends or Dota 2, they're not really, pro teams aren't really streaming their scrims. The only really time they're, VODs are ever broadcasted, or the way their game, synergized together and the way they play as a team is ever shown to the public is in tournaments or is in, exhibition matches, that type of thing. In League of Legends, it's the LCS, then it's the tournaments, and then it's, the off season when people are streaming, regular pubs and the solo queue. But other than that, you're never really seeing a scrim, right? And that's sort of the content that you want to avoid as a pro player or as a pro team in putting out, because if you think about it, you're giving away information. So I covered a bunch of stuff just right there in the first minute of this video, and I want to talk about, first the list of things that would, entice someone to want to make these types of videos, like scrim videos or a video where maybe you're dropping a 60 bomb on somebody that may be sort of hard to do and it's really impressive and you want to show off, that's why you have those Xbox Live clips now. You can record, say, Xbox record that, you get 30 seconds of whatever clip it was that was really cool to you. You get to see all these highlight moments, and there's a certain merit to that. So if you're a pub stomper, there's a certain way you can say, oh, I gave away the strategy if I upload this video. And so maybe if you're a pub stomper, you don't want to upload a video that may show off a certain spawn trap because it gives away information. If it gets put into a public light, there's different ways in which the community becomes better. Because I talked about the trickle-down effect before in Call of Duty, where people will see information from the higher up. So they'll see information from the Black Ops 2 developers, or they'll see it from, I'm talking about Black Ops 2 right there, but the developers in general. Or you can see it from the pro players, or you see it from the montage guys, the pub stompers, or the troll guys. You see all this information, and it trickles down to the people who are watching or absorbing all the content that's being created. And so as a pro player, as a pro team, you want to be, not giving up any content at all, really. You don't want to be giving any information, potentially, because that just makes your competition better. Because if they're just playing against you, maybe they won't be able to tell exactly what you're doing, the way you're communicating with your team, or the way you function as a whole when you do make mistakes. They can't really see all that from their perspective of being killed repetitively in a match. If they're playing against you, all they can tell is, hey, at the end of the day, you're winning the game, and now you're doing really well at tournaments. They get those highlight plays at tournaments with the casters going off, the crowd going nuts. But other than that, there's nothing else being revealed. And then when you have situations where people are uploading constantly, suddenly, the content sometimes becomes boring. That's a separate issue entirely, but information is now made readily available for everyone to see. So going through some of the positive reasons as to why you would want to, promote your content as a pro player in terms of what you're uploading, like scrims and that sort of thing. These are mainly intangible reasons. And also, I guess, you could say that for the no section as well. But I feel like this is more so intangible, because information, I feel like, is something that's super important. So getting right into it, one of the first reasons was, you make a living, right, off of YouTube, off of Twitch. So I'm not telling you guys, hey, don't stream at all if that's the way you make your money. That's really why you're in this, because obviously tournaments aren't going to be the best way to, have a reliable source of income. You want to be able to promote your products like Gamma, like Scuff, and the best way you do that is to constantly interact with your fans, interacting with the stream, talking to your people, saying, if you retweet this, this will happen. And then if people see how well you do in game with the products that you're promoting, guess what? You have win-win right there, because you're making funny videos, you're enjoying your time, while also making a buck on the side and interacting with fans. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. The only downside is that you're giving up a lot of information in terms of strategy or whatever it may be in that certain circumstance. So you provide a lot of entertainment. You make those highlight clips, those funny moments. So in a pub player's instance, it would be, you get to see that 100+. You get to see that triple Moab gameplay, but you also get to see how he does that, right? And if you're just any random maybe person watching on YouTube, you may not look at it in depth, but if you're a player trying to learn, and a lot of people do, because hell, the video game industry is super stacked in terms of people who are in it, and who are in it for the long haul too, because let's face it, guys, it's kind of easy to get an Xbox, right? All you can do is buy the console, buy a monitor, buy the game, and you're set to go. If you have good internet, that's good for you. If you don't, you still have a chance, right? This is a very low, barrier to entry in terms of like anything that you could be doing. You're not like a programmer where you have to spend years learning code. You're not a guy who's a businessman who has to set up an entire company, make these shell corporations, do all these sort of things, set up LLCs, get a whole idea running off the ground from the grassroots. And sometimes those don't even work in the real world. When you have this really small thing that you can start up at the bottom, like a YouTube channel, like I can do, anyone can do it. It's a super small barrier to entry. That's why it seems oversaturated. So when you flood it with more information, you're just making it easier for everyone to get involved with it. So as a pro player, you should really be trying to avoid that. And this is sort of like a message to pros, but it's also just a conversation I want to talk about in general. Should pros be making content? Because hell, I enjoy watching some pro content. Like, yeah, I learn a lot from some of their gameplays they upload. I learn a lot from the way they talk about, their mentality, the way they interact with their teammates. You can see like vlogs, they're always nice with each other. They're always having this, happy, jovial time. So you get to see all the interactions, and it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily always Call of Duty. It's always, going to be that gameplay on Retreat where you dropped a 60 bomb in the CTF back in the day when they played that game mode. But it can be CSGO, it could be vlogs. And so overall, as a pro, you want to be shielding yourself from putting up too much content, because then you start to look mortal. That's why when at the beginning of Advanced Warfare, when Optic Gaming was literally winning everything, now obviously you got FaZe, but they were winning everything because they came in second at the first event, but overall their track record has been terrific. So they had this huge disparity in information. They were crushing tournaments, dropping 1 or 2 maps overall, because they had this just massive advantage above other teams, not because they were necessarily unskilled compared to them, even though Optic Gaming is considered to have the best talent in all of Call of Duty. Coupled with that is the amount of information that they had above everyone else. They had a certain level of communication that was unrivaled. No one could compete with them at all. And guess what they did? They were able to push that advantage, and even with their information being out. So could you imagine if people didn't catch up to that point where they didn't figure out all the stuff that Optic knows, all these strategies? They may still have been, winning every single tournament up to this point. Maybe FaZe wouldn't be where they were, even if they win those couple off maps with the ridiculous slaying power they have on that roster. So information as a whole, however untangible, does still have an impact. Sorry, someone's like going off down there. I don't know what's going on, but anyways, you may think so. Another yes point, you may say like, oh, it's better for the general COD community. It increases the overall skill. People are going through up the divisions and like league play, that type of thing. Your pub players are going to become more skilled. That's why skill-based matchmaking is a thing. People are becoming more and more, into the game. They want to do better for themselves. They have to go against tougher opponents every time to make themselves better, to understand the nuances, the small little details, the small corner, the small head glitch, the little strategy with the delay push, all these small details that potentially have huge upsides if you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things. So overall, when you say the yes qualities, they're really intangible. Like, people will always say like, I just want to see my favorite pro player go up. The personalities you get to see. Like in League of Legends, you got Huni. This guy's on Fnatic, a really the best European team up there with Origin at this point. These guys are at Worlds right now. He's a massive personality. Every time people see him on stream, he's always making an appearance. He's always showing off who he is as a person, but then he's also making ridiculous plays on top of that. He's also a god tier top laner, and so you make all those plays and you give away information, then there's a potential chance that you let down your team in that sort of a sense. But going more into the no reasons now, just to enunciate them properly, to dictate them to you guys, you give away information and strategy. I've iterated this hundreds of times throughout this video now, literally hundreds, guys, don't get me wrong on that, but you give away information, vital information, small little details that you may not think are that important, but have drastic, monumental impacts in terms of the environment which you're playing, which is, in the sense of Call of Duty, the COD map you're playing, in terms of the game mode, the gun you're using, all the small little bits and pieces of information that fit together to form a puzzle in that one instance of a moment. So when you see this player go left instead of right, you can piece together, you can understand the narrative that he was trying to do. Maybe he made a mistake, but if you have the VOD, you can see how that played out. You can see, and maybe the other team made a mistake on top of that. You can layer things. There's a lot of permutations in Call of Duty, which is why it's hard to dictate. That's why people may think, hey, it's fine to upload stuff because everything's random as it is, so every single instance isn't always going to play out the same. You have a general strategy and you go by that and you just implement it better than the other team. But sometimes it's better to shield that strategy entirely. Maybe people don't know that's the strategy you're using. In Black Ops 2, the strategy was always, hardpoint, rotate at 20 seconds and then try to get the first initial chunks of the hill, and then your opponents will be fighting for scrap time at the end, then you'll have an advantage going into the next hill. That was a strategy, but when Farico Impact developed that strategy, No one knew about that before. That's why they won 4 tournaments in a row. That's why they won COD champs. They had this innovative strategy and hardpoints. Barely anyone could take a map off them. When they did, you could see the gameplays. You know, Envy on Raid Hardpoint. That was a ridiculous map because no one expected Frico to fall down like that. And they, you know, it was a close series. They're really equally skilled, but they had that information edge, right? So even if they did lose in terms of maybe a gunfight here or there that changed the tides of the map, you can still see how valuable the information was, and you know, the ability to beat a team and you understand what information they use to, you know, sort of target you in a sense is super vital and super important. So with that, you know, you get to see strategy, but you also get to see modes of communication. So another, you know, key term I guess you guys can put in your heads, in your, you know, vaults, your vocab vaults, modes of communication. So whether a team is functional or not. So I'll again bring up the example of Frico Impact. So when they started to decline, so when they stopped getting first placements, they got second and then third and eventually staggered off and broke up with their roster and then, you know, went their separate ways. You saw that decline just in their VODs. You have these 100,000 view videos on YouTube of their roster just going at each other in terms of, you know, just saying like they don't know how to play the game. They're talking about strategy in the middle of streams, and then that's giving other teams incentives like, hey, this team's collapsing. Now we have a, you know, confidence edge. So now mentally we have a better chance of beating them, I think, because before they looked like, you know, untouchable. They were invulnerable players. No one knew what they were up to. They always had this, you know, thing in the back of their pockets that, hey, they could pull it at any moment. They always had an answer to everything that you did. But now when you watch their videos, you think, these guys are mortal after all. You know, they're fighting with each other. They have these squabbles. They don't understand strategy to the extent that we thought they did. They've set up this metagame of their own, but not even they comprehend it. They can implement it perfectly. Maybe we have a chance to do that. So you can see flaws within Frico Impact in doing that. And you can also look at a team like Optic Gaming, who have the biggest YouTube followings, you know, in terms of the COD esports scene. These guys have hundreds of thousands of views. They're uploading these scrims. They're uploading hour-long VODs of, you know, scrims against top teams. And they're doing well, right? They're at the top of their level. They're always communicating. They're giving up so much strategy, so much information. So in that sense, they're just elevating everyone else, because what's the advantage of Optic to upload these videos? They get their money, they get their views, they get their entertainment value. And once they're done with all that information is just left on the, you know, back burner for other teams to pick up. They get to pick up that information. They get to see what you did wrong. So that's why, you know, in theater mode, you could, like, whenever you went back and watched theater mode, you learned so much, because things you wouldn't have been able to see before, now you can, because guess what? You went back and saw the VODs. You get to see every moment as a moment on its own. You get to see from event A to event B what information made event A to event B possible. Why did this turn out a certain way? You get to look back, right? Take a knee for a second. Understand the nuances. Don't think of everyone as immortal gods. You just get to see from the actual bare bones game, the engine, everything, the environment that you're in. You get to know from the very basics. And so when you give up all that information, I keep saying this, guys, I gotta hammer it into your heads, then you're giving up a lot more than what you think. It's intangible, like I said, but I think it's more practical in terms of the reason, the rationale. It's maybe selfish, you know, you're like, oh, you don't want the COD community to become better, you don't want people, your fans, to know about what you're doing, but it's almost like foolish in a sense to actually go ahead. It's like saying like, hey guys, here's all the answers to the test that, you know, if you all pass, then it doesn't matter anyways, because only the top 2 get to make it into the next class. You are out there to be doing well for yourself, right? And if you're a competitor, sure, you've got a lot of friends in the community. You want to show off the things that you do to your friends, but from the business aspects, from a competitor standpoint, what's the advantage, right? It's just, there's so many disadvantages. So remember, in the other sense, you know, it's a control of information. It's like basically they're the media. Almost, they're like news corporations. They have a lot of power. They can shape the mentality of thousands of people because they have control of the information. So if they lie to you guys, guess what? Then you know all the information, but you don't know that it's a lie, right? So I remember, you know, people on Twitter, sometimes it was like old coaches from League of Legends, they would say on Twitter like, oh, this champion is super strong right now, everybody should be banning it, and that would be false information. It's basically distortion, right? They're doing that as an advantage, as a tactic to throw other teams off. Controlling information is so huge in that sort of sense, and you know, you leave these informational videos up and it has huge negative impacts in terms of pros. So you can obviously leave it up to the YouTubers, you know, the guys like Drifter who want to give information out. The point is they're doing successful because they're giving out information. People want that information. If that's the only way they're getting it, those guys can become popular and blow up like that. But from a competitor, you want to be doing that. You want to be, you know, hiding as much as you can, even from people like Drifter, you want to be doing everything on the down low, whereas people like that, they're trying to get the information out there. So I'd say let the two sides of the coin handle it different ways. You know, if you want pros to go on the analyst desk, that's fine. They get to share their insight, but they don't always have to share every little thing, right? They don't have to give every little finite detail, because that just puts everyone else miles ahead of maybe where they should be in terms of in-game intelligence, in terms of their comprehension of how to use the, you know, different elements and factors available to them within the game itself. And also, you know, even like, you know, taking into account, like, if you're a winning team, you're showing off information that will help other teams win. If you're a losing team, you get to show off teams how you get beat, right? You get to show teams what your flaws are. It's not only that you're doing things well if you're a top team, you're also doing things poorly. You're also making mistakes here or there. Even if you are still winning at the end of the game, you made a couple of mistakes that dropped you 120 seconds on the last 7 hills. But if you didn't make those mistakes, you would have 250 to owe this one team. People can see from both angles. It's not only that the team is always doing well, therefore they shouldn't be giving up the information because it's disadvantageous because now everyone else is miles ahead. They could also be miles behind in other aspects, and they can get abused in that sense. So now, even if you're a winning or losing team, there is always information available, guys. There's, you know, if you can say like this, like there's ways of saying like information is like repetitive almost. Like you could say like, okay, the wall is white, the lamp is white. The door is gray. The door is brown. I said gray. I can't even read. I'm like colorblind apparently. My blue snowball is white. Whatever. That's all information that doesn't really matter. But then there's gonna be bits and pieces of information out there that is gonna matter, right? It's gonna be something like, because every bit of information is gonna have like a contrapositive. So, Scump is a better player than Neslo. Neslo is a worse player than Scump. You're both saying the same thing but from different perspectives, and in terms of the way you frame it, that information can be crucial. So when you go to that 1v1 scenario, you think Scump has a massive edge on Neslo here because Scump has had that experience in the past. He is a godlike player in terms of being immortal in the Call of Duty Hall of Fame. Neslo, he can occasionally clutch a ridiculous 1v2, 1v3. You can compare them and you can look at it from different perspectives. That's what information does. But when you only, you know, if you provide a certain sense, if you like limit information in a certain way as a pro team and you distort it, you can potentially, you know, throw teams off. So if your strategy in a 1v1 is to hide in the left corner and people know that, they're going to be probably looking there. But if you distort the information, if you abuse it, and then, you know, play on the tendencies and the way people pick up information about your team and learn about how you play, then you can abuse that. So that's why in League of Legends at Worlds, in the group stages, top teams aren't really using everything that's the best in the game. They're playing off meta in a sense because they're playing with weaker champions. But if they played with their stronger champions, then those would get banned away, and if they were going against the best possible opponents, they would have a legitimate disadvantage because their strategy is inherently flawed. Whereas right now, some teams are hiding information that does, you know, that is a better strategy. They're presenting a weaker strategy, and when it really matters most, they're going to present a better strategy. So distortion, prevention, you know, blocking off information while also showing off information, it has its positives and negatives. In terms of, you know, being a competitor, you definitely should not be uploading really informative videos in terms of scrims, in terms of explaining something. You know, Coach Merc, that was a series that I, you know, that's why I even make this video in the first place. Is, you know, there's an Esports Nation Twitter question of the day talking about, you know, who's your favorite YouTuber. My favorite YouTuber was Merc because he gave so much information in those Coach Merc videos about how you should play competitively, and that information is crucial. And the fact that I'm looking at it just maybe as an analyst, that's my mentality, like that's super good information as opposed to like a random highlight video where some dude got a quad piece. Like, all right, that's lucky here or there. People are going to make those outplays happen. That's a testament to the player. But when you look at strategy as a whole and information that's being deprived, like, okay, you know Scump's a god. That's not something you can directly combat, you know. That's just something you have to live with as you play the game as a competitor. But information that, you know, may not necessarily be discoverable beforehand, if that's prevented and that's unknown, that's where you get the advantages as a competitor, as a, you know, maybe, you know, a YouTuber, a pub stomper, a sniper. You can hide these advantages and you get to see yourself in a light where people, you know, you have, like, as a player yourself, you know exactly what you do. You know your mentality. You don't know the other team's mentality, though. Even if they upload videos, you won't know exactly, you know, the pinpoint. That's why information as a whole, it's always going to be, it's always going to have an inherent bias, and understanding that bias is crucial. You know, figuring out what information should be banned and what shouldn't be banned as a pro. I think it's pretty black and white in that sense, though, because the more information you give out, the better chance you give the other people to know that information. If it's good or bad, it's just information that's available. At the end of the day, if you're an AM team, that's why they come to the woodworks and do super well. No one knows anything about these guys. Team Revenge and COD champs, you guys, okay, they win 5Ks occasionally. They make a name for themselves on the online tourneys, on these circuits. But when they come to LAN and crush top pro teams, and then you ask yourself who these guys are, then that's why you ask what strategy they come in with, what information did they have that other top teams did they have, what meta did they discover within the actual tournament itself that has been so superior to the other teams. Anyways, guys, it's been Nexter. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.